One bit of good news that we did get: the other children are being taken care of by grandma and grandpa and apparently doing very well. So we're thankful for that. Let me bring back in my think tank. This is always these types of cases are extremely difficult. There's always some level of mental illness usually involved in things like this, or drug use. Here they're talking about competency, Holly, competency. And that's going to deal with what her mental state is now, right? Not at the time of Noah's death, but what's going on with her right now.
Right. And one thing that's really important for everyone who's watching to understand is that legal competency to stand trial is such a low threshold. It basically is just confirming that that person can understand simple thoughts and can participate and understand the proceedings around you. It really has nothing to do with her mental state then, or the time that this happened, but rather, can she understand the proceedings going around? And absent something crazy happening, which this case is going to have a lot of twists and turns, she will likely be found competent.
Joseph Marone, let's talk about the other part of mental illness in criminal courtrooms, which is legal insanity. How does that work, right? You're a criminal defense attorney and you've got a client and you've got to do everything for the client. You talk with the client. How do you have a conversation with them that, hey, you're insane? Like, how do you approach going for that type of defense with someone who you have to speak with and you've got to say, yeah, you're legally insane?
Well, it starts off by your own consultation with the client and trying to see if you can communicate and get information. If you think that's a possible defense, I mean, you're going to hire an expert who's going to do a full evaluation to make sure and see if there's a determination whether this specific defendant is incompetent to stand trial. It's a low standard, and if they understand, they read, write, and understand the English language, they understand what's going on, and various other variables, unless you provide an outside mental illness pre-existing, it's going to be very difficult to prove that this person is not competent to stand trial. And unless there's other pre-existing medical evidence that maybe a history here, you're not going to get very far. It seems to be in this case, and this person was a really bad heroin addict, and it's evident from the evidence they already found. And I think that's where this thing's going to kind of bear out.
Yeah, I would agree.
I think so too.
Yeah, I mean, listen, this person was significantly on drugs. She was looking for heroin that night. Somebody came around and brought her heroin, and then ultimately whatever went wrong with the child and her story. But the bigger problem is when they eventually went back and did an autopsy. I mean, there was healing rib fractures, which tends to believe there was ongoing abuse. So this horrible mother was doing drugs constantly and abusing this child, if not others. So that's the way the evidence is going to kind of come out physically and through the medical evidence that's been determined so far.
Go ahead, DeWitt. You can jump in there.
Yeah, no, I kind of have a problem with the excuse that she gave initially, which was that she took her baby to bed at 1 a.m. and, woke up to find him injured and in the state that he was at 11. That doesn't even sound reasonable to me, personally. Not only I don't think did the law enforcement do their due diligence there, but she definitely got the benefit of the doubt when maybe she should not have. As far as the competency goes, I would have to agree with everybody else. I don't know that there's going to be any rightful or reasonable manner in which she can be determined to be less than competent to stand trial or have an insanity plea as a defense. I don't see it happening.
And Holly, no way she can use drugs as a defense, right? You can't say in there, I didn't know what I was doing. I was on drugs.
Unless someone put her on those drugs, voluntary intoxication of any kind is not going to be a defense that's viable. It would have to be some sort of outlandish claim that someone else was drugging her and she didn't know. And I don't think that that's going to be supported by evidence. I think at this point, besides being a heartbreaking, gut-wrenching, factual case, I do think that this will be a very interesting forensic case. I mean, I know they already called in I think it was a paleontologist to come in and recover the remains of the baby. So it will be a very technical case. And I think that that could lend itself to a certain type of juror that you would want on your jury.
Yeah, the other thing, Vince, is
Oh.
I think ultimately in this case, she's going to end up pleading. It's a question of whether or not you can get a lesser charge on murder, and they're going to look to mitigate it out with the heroin addiction, the longstanding drug addiction. She's getting rehabilitation. She's dealing with it to try to save her some time because she's probably looking at a life sentence. And her defense lawyer is going to try to do everything he can to try to minimize that. And I think that's the best you're going to get in this horrible case. And there's going to probably be a stay away order from all her children. She doesn't deserve to see any of her children probably for the rest of her life. And that's ultimately what's going to happen.
Yeah. And again, the good news there is Grandma and Grandpa doing a wonderful job, and they say the kids are doing well. When we come back, there's a stay-at-home order across the country in all these states. One of the states where there's a stay-at-home order, someone decided, I'm going to have a Corona block party, and I'm going to live stream it. Well, he got arrested, dragged into court, but the judge threw out those charges related to the stay-at-home order violation. What do you think about it? 13th juror speaks out next.
If he's going to be charged, everybody should be charged. It really constituted selective enforcement of the law. There were other individuals in our community that had committed the same criminal conduct, yet they were not charged. 30 white individuals that were gathered protesting Governor DeWitt's press conference, and they were outside. They were violating the 6 feet distance rule. Some of them were armed, participating in violent rhetoric and banter. There was no charge against those individuals.
That video out of Cincinnati, Ohio, in the Over the Rhine neighborhood, apparently someone wanted to throw a Corona block party and violate the stay-at-home orders. Well, police jumped in, and as you saw, arrested and charged that young man. The judge ended up throwing that charge out, throwing the stay-at-home violation charge out the door. So, posted it today. Your reaction of the 13th juror. Let's get right to our comment of the day from April, who says, sorry, but calling them orders indicates it's law. That is completely unconstitutional and should never be upheld to such an extent. People willingly coming together should never be an issue. Now, if they are out perpetuating their presence to others that they were unwilling, I can maybe see citations, but arrests? Heck no. All right, DeWitt, your thoughts here. Are we in unconstitutional grounds now where we are just issuing orders that people need to stay home?
Well, I think it does step into your First Amendment rights and freedom of assembly. And, municipalities have to be cautious of that with these orders and the enforcement mechanism that they put in place to enforce them. I think that I think her name is April. I think was her name April?
April, absolutely.
April, I think April is right in saying that, look, people have a constitutional right to get together. Of course, that is certainly irresponsible, but the law doesn't demand that we act completely responsibly, and it cannot infringe upon somebody's right to gather. Now, certainly there are some public interests in making sure that the virus doesn't spread, but so long as these folks are not inciting violence, as was indicated by this fella, then I don't see how you really enforce it. The problem here is that they said that he was inciting violence, which is not protected.
Yeah, those are the other charges. Yeah, those are the other charges,
right.
But with the stay-at-home, that was thrown out. Kathleen writing tonight, yes, I agree with the judge. The man was only live streaming and not breaking the law. I agree with this attorney. No white protesters were arrested who were not following the 6 feet apart rule, and some of them were armed. Why should this young man be singled out? How about that, Holly? Do you have to arrest everyone who's violating an order in order for that order to be upheld?
So, of course not. You don't have to arrest everybody. It's obviously officers' discretion on who to arrest, who not to arrest. This individual, while exercising horrible judgment by inviting everyone to his house, didn't force anyone to come over. And so in a way, how is he more responsible than the people that voluntarily came over there? The problem that I have, and the reason that if I was the judge and I was going to be deciding this case, what am I going to do with this individual? If he won't comply, am I going to lock him up in custody and for the next 14 days risk the health of the inmates that are begging and filing motion after motion for bond consideration? And so, in a way, incarcerating him or keeping him in custody could prove out to be a more dangerous thing to do.
Not even more dangerous.
Stacy writes,
if I can, Benny, if I
Go
want
ahead.
to piggyback on that, not even more dangerous, but that's violative of his constitutional rights. He can go out if he wants to. Of course, there's an order that suggests that
Wait, Vince, do you know what happened here? This guy live streamed. He live streamed a video which he wanted to get attention. It got picked up by, I think, some hip hop publication. He says, "We don't give an F about Corona." Now, the local law enforcement is trying to keep order on a virus that has nothing to do with race. It infects everyone. It's a dangerous. As soon as you get next to someone, it could spread and kill someone. So in order to get a hold of this situation, they have to go out, they arrest this guy for what he did to show the public that you can't take these actions and how dangerous it is. That's what he did. He incited violence. I mean, he enticed violence here. He live streamed and said, "We don't give an F about Corona." And he's going to coerce other people to go along with him. I mean, that's a dangerous situation. That's what this thing was about. It had nothing to do with First Amendment rights and the ability to protest. What was he protesting? He was creating danger. So that's what happened here.
I respectfully disagree. He's got a constitutional right to assemble. That's in the Constitution. I understand the orders in regards to. I understand the orders in regards to safety. Okay, I get that. But they cannot infringe upon a citizen's right to assembly. All right, that's in the First Amendment, and the framers of the Constitution made it the First Amendment for a reason.
Yeah, but just because you assemble, you then can't take it to another step and go out there and entice violence. In this case, when you say go F Corona, you're telling other people, don't worry about the quarantine. Go out there, coerce in public and pass this deadly disease on to other people. And that's basically what he was doing. Now, if they allow this to continue to happen in the public, they're going to have an outcry. It's bad enough they can't control and get people to stay home. So if they don't make an example to the public, I mean, they're going to have a bigger problem. And that's what happened here. You can't start weaving the First Amendment into this. That's crazy.
Well, the First Amendment is what it is. I don't think I have to weave it. However, look, I don't fault law enforcement for taking action and arresting. Okay. But I think the court made the right decision in throwing out the charge because the person was exercising his First Amendment rights. And
but that was a misdemeanor. He's still charged with a felony. He's still charged with a felony. He's looking at 2 years now.
Hold on. And I will add, the selective way to enforce this upon a person of color instead of everybody else who may not have been a person of color and who are also armed is very concerning for me. And it should be concerning for all of us.
Next comment comes from Stacy. I just feel like having a Corona block party is just so flat out selfish, and it's unfair to all the people who are staying in and doing the right thing to save lives. We all want to go out and have fun. Do I think he should go to jail? No, but he should get a fine. I want to go to one more statement here. Joe, prosecute for what charge? What actual law was broken? Thank you, Joe. And thank you to DeWitt, Holly, and Joseph. I appreciate your time and your expertise tonight. Please come back and join us again. That is it for tonight, folks. We're here every night from 8 to 11, bringing you the world of crime and justice. I don't care if they're not having jury trials. We'll have trials right here every night. Have a wonderful evening. And as always, from a distance, don't forget, hug the kids.